Hey, good afternoon and welcome to the Coaching Hour, a live space where coaching meets conversation and transformation. I'm Kim Britz and I'm joined by amazing coach and colleague, Karen Ray Cohen. How are you doing, Karen?
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. So excited and super to be with you on the session today, and especially live.
Yeah, live as a whole, it offers a whole other ball game. And as luck would have it, we struggled with our connection 2 minutes before the time. But this is life, and this is how it happens. So, Karen, for me, I know Linda's not joining us today; she's traveling at the moment. So, but for me, the coaching hour. When I chatted to Linda about this initially, is you know it's a wonderful moment to be able to just connect with people in real time, and because it's live. But it's also sometimes, very often, when you're having these conversations and when you do answer questions in live, in a live space, you get immediate transformation. You get some really nice takeaways, some really beautiful reframes in the conversations, and um, in real time, where people can actually kind of look at it and go, wow, I didn't think of it that way, and I haven't ever seen it from that perspective. There's also sometimes there's breakthroughs that happen in real time. But part of this conversation for me, and just before I joined today, I was in a coaching session with someone, and one of the conversations we have was taking chaos and understanding that there's so much chaos in life. How do we find a bit of clarity, and what is that signal, out of the chaos, and moving from that chaos into a little bit of clarity? And, coaching for me, very specifically, is very future ready, sort of future driven and action orientated. Give us a bit of idea. What is it? Why is it important for you to be here today? But also just tell us a bit about you, and, so people who are listening get to know you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. That's always that question we love to hate, right? A little bit about us. So I'm going to be very brief. I'm very eclectic. I work in so many different fields. I'm in the mental health field. I'm in the well-being field. I'm in the facilitation field. I'm also in the lecturing field. So I'm in a lot of parts. But I like that, kind of keeps me really busy, but also allows different perspectives. And I think that's kind of checking in with you as well, is that when we are in a coaching session, we get different perspectives. So I'm a lifelong learner, which means I'm always curious and open to learning things. And that helps me to gain a perspective of my life and also to help others in the coaching. So, lifelong learner, curious, open, love researching. And as you can see, like on the platform of the Hello Coach, I'm on all the topics because they are all my love and passion. So if you go on the Hello Coach app and you just look at car, and I'm basically on all the topics. So that's basically me in a nutshell.
And I love that, and I think it does offer you variety of helping at different levels and different approaches and different things that you get to coach through. But I think for me, one of the significance, and you alluded to that, was because we love the growth aspect to coaching. It's there, and we the ones that learn first, right? So whether we're training or we're going through a coaching certification of sorts, part of that wanting to help helps us first. And is that how you also relate to why you do coaching? Because you've learned so much, and because you've learned, you want to be able to share.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a journey, you'll see when if you've never been for a coaching session, it's very scary in the beginning. And then you go like, oh, but I'm learning so much about myself. And it is a self-development, self-discovery. And every time I wake up, I go like, what else can I discover about me? Because what happens is that you're changing all the time. It's like, well, if you live in Cape Town, it's like the weather changes every minute. So we are changing a lot. And you know what? In the world of change, we got to get used to change. So when we wake up each day, it's a different day. We have a different mood. We have different behavior. So I focus a lot on the psychology of coaching as well. but also the psychology of the mind, because we as human beings, that's a big part of our change, and also where we are and how we can grow is looking at that behavior. And what we don't know is what we don't know. And a lot of people in a coaching platform and session will say like, wow, just got so many insights about myself. And that
Yeah.
makes me very happy.
I mean, on that note, you say psychology because, we have an audience and people are listening in today. So the psychology of coaching, tell us more about that and what that is, because I know what it is for me, but, just to unpack that for people.
Absolutely. So I think coaching, is quite a new profession compared to psychology. I mean, psychology, we're looking at the early 1900s. So it's got like nearly 130 years of being, in our society. But coaching is kind of a
Mm.
new word, even though it's 35 years, 40 years old. That's pretty new compared to
Yeah.
our psychological background. And, textbooks have been written over and over again. Edition 4 or 5 in a textbook, and a coaching textbook, we'd have like edition 1, it's like we're still starting there. So I think a lot of our
Mm.
background comes from the psychological field, is that because that's what's researched and that's what's written. But coaching is developing all of those research and ethical principles as well. So psychology really focuses on what's happening right now, and then delving back into the past. So what is it about the past that maybe has made us stuck? But coaching is very specific in the here and now. So if you'd come to me, Kevin, I'd say, great. Sometimes we have to go back to the past to uncover what's there. But really what we want to do is go from the here and now. So now you're stuck now. So what is that stuckness? And what does that look like if we're moving forward or for the future? So it's very much a progression to moving forward. And psychology has a backwards kind of methodology, but coaching is that newer way. Sometimes people will say like, I don't really want to go back there, Karen. Let's just go forward. And
Mm.
that's where we start.
And I love that. And I think that to me is, I always use the frame as coaching very often is an action orientated process. It's where psychology you go back and you kind of think through things and uncover and resolve. But the act of coaching, I always share with my coaching clients that, action creates motion. And whether it's the smallest action, it's action, right? And I think that's what's beautiful about a coaching process, is that we get to sit with someone and unpack something. And in that moment, very often we need to go from that to where do we go next? What is the next best step for me? And I think that's what's beautiful about, the coaching process in itself. But I just want to share, from last week, we chatted, Linda and I chatted about the importance of some various tools that we're sharing and process that we're sharing. And today we're also going to be discussing a very important conversation, which when you put your hand up for this, Karen, I was like, this is a conversation I think we're going to have a lot of ears and eyeballs watching. And but before we get that, I wanted to recap just briefly on where we were last week. We touched on the 6 human needs, and from that perspective, as humans, we all function from a position of wanting to fulfill something in our lives, right? And we're either wanting certainty for our careers or certainty in our relationships, or a sense of significance in what I'm doing. And I know that the career that I've had has created enormous significance for me, and kind of going, what I do is valuable. And very often when I leave, that's what people share with me is, the value that it's left. But we also look at things like love and connection and a sense of community and connection. And, part of the conversation we're going to have today around addiction and Karen, please, please share with me from your perspective. But also the lack of connection very often is filled by substance, is filled by activity, is filled by an addiction, because we don't feel like, it's almost like we're fulfilling something, right? And so that process of addiction is also connected to something like that. So what's beautiful about the 6 human needs, it gives us indicators of who we are and what it is we need. And guys, you can go and check it out at sixhumanneeds.com. And if you want to scan this, please go ahead and scan it. So I'll give everyone a few seconds to connect to that. But Karen, just from your perspective, we are chatting about an enormous conversation today, and that conversation being addiction. Why did you think, and we know that it's Mental Awareness Month, right? So there's been an influx of awareness around understanding the importance of our mental awareness. Why did you want to come today and speak about this conversation? What stood out about this conversation to you and wanting to unpack it?
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I think, what happens is that we look at addictions. And if I ask this question now to the audience, what is addiction? I think almost 80 to 90% will put up their hand about substance abuse. Okay. And that's alcohol and drugs and things like that. But we don't often think about the other types of addiction. So for me, it's very much about awareness. What are those other types of addictions that we can, or processes that we can get addicted to? Because we often think of substance, but in actual fact, there's a huge amount of process addictions. So I really want the audience to understand that there's so many types of things or products or processes that you can become addicted to. And we often think that actually that's just part of our lives, but it's actually interfering with our lives. And it's merely about awareness. I'm very big on psychological awareness. And being Mental Health Month, as you say, it is around noticing what are those things that are affecting my mental health, my well-being. What is it about that continuum where I was thriving and now I'm just in survival mode? What's going on with me?
Yeah. So one of the questions that I do have just off the top of my head, Karen, is you speak about, other things that are addictive and, the systems and behaviors and things. Is it true? Or is it a sense that sometimes, very often, the thing that we're addicted to is part of the process that I'm addicted to? Is there a correlation to, and that could be, numbing the feeling by, or the emptiness, or whatever that thing is that we're going through with a substance, but that is also a habit form process that we're addicted to, that we don't recognize that the process might need to be interrupted, and therefore it helps deal with substance or anything outside of us.
Absolutely. So I just want to go through this definition here, because this might also help the audience. Is that an addiction is a psychological and a physical inability to stop consuming chemicals, so those things that you're talking about, Kevin, drugs, and an activity. So that's what you're alluding to as well. This activity of what we use the substance or process for, but it's actually causing a psychological and physical harm. So we need to notice that it's not always a physical harm. It's a psychological harm. And that's the one that we put on the side, and we think, like, is that really doing harm? Because it's not harming my body. But in actual fact, the mind and the body are together. And I'm going to talk about that one as well. So if you go to the next slide, Kevin, I just want to share some substances and different kinds of addictions so that we can get into the conversation, in the meaty part of the conversation. Is that good for you?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So let's just look at the various types. So most of you, if I say what is addictions, and you can pop it in the chat block as well and share with each other, you most probably will say substances like drugs or alcohol. Maybe some of you will say gaming, or, any kinds of other types that you can think of that we know about. But let's think of some of the things that you don't think about. So alcohol, we know, and in South Africa, the statistics are very high on alcohol abuse. And it is like you
Yeah.
say, Kevin, it's about that numbing those emotions, that I'm not coping or things are too much for me, I'm overwhelmed. So taking a substance will actually just relax my body. And we also don't think about those other types of addictions like self-harm. So self-harm is also an addiction where people cut themselves or do something to harm their bodies just to release that pressure and that tension. So we've got drugs, and you can go through the list and have a look. So it's cannabis, cocaine, crack, ecstasy, tic, heroin, inhalants, all of these types of things that we can use as a substance. And what a substance really does is it's altering the brain. So this is where we
Mm.
can get into lots of nice conversation, Kevin, about the brain. Because we need to understand that addictions is a brain addiction. Okay, the brain is the one that is being altered in mostly all the substances. And then when the brain is altered, the body is altered because all the chemicals are moving between the brain. The brain is telling the body what to do with their chemicals, right? So there's a lot of neuroscience that goes around, especially around the opioids, which actually affect the brain. Changes gives you that euphoric feeling. And once you're in that euphoria, your body, you know what happens? Oh, your body feels relaxed and you can just do about anything. And then when that wears off, the brain is saying, well, okay, I got all that lovely dopamine. So where's that dopamine now? I need more of that. And
Yeah.
that's how the addiction process starts. So here are some more prescription medication. We don't think about prescription medication as being addictive, but it is highly addictive. You use it for what you need, and then you love that feeling of being relaxed and calm, so you keep using the substance. Now, things like
Mm.
gaming, technology, and digital addiction. Okay, that one we're going to all go like, okay, who goes to the
Yeah.
bathroom with their cell phone? Just about everybody, right? Yes, Kevin.
Yes. Guilty.
Guilty. So those social media addictions, and there's actually been a lot of proof and research around that, especially in all generations, where you actually think about this. If you leave your phone at home, your heart starts to palpitate. You know, you go like, "Where's my phone?" And you start getting anxious, and that's part of an addiction process, is that you actually crave something, and when it's not there, you become anxious about it. So just think of this in a slightly different light. Now don't panic. You're not all addicted. There's obviously forms and processes you have to go through. There's questionnaires, but I'm highlighting these things. All right. So gaming
Mm.
is a very addictive process. So when we talk about process, we talk about something that has an action and a level. So think about gaming or even gambling. You get to a certain level and then you get rewarded. So dopamine acts on, it's the reward hormone. So as soon as you get rewarded, you want more, right? So then you play
Yeah.
again, but then you lose. And so it's one of those, like, even if you're using like different kinds of gaming where you get to next levels. So that might be PlayStations or whatever. They are highly addictive because you going to the next level, you'll get the next reward. So those are technological ones. Then we've got eating disorders, and we often don't think about that as part of an addiction in the addiction category, because if you think about it, things like anorexia and bulimia, the audience can pop it in the chat block if you know what those are, is that you are addicted to the portioning of your food. So in anorexia, you eat very little or you portion. It's all about control. And all of these, Kevin, you alluded to, is about control. How can I
Yeah.
control my environment so that I can feel more safe or calm and
Mm.
or cope better? And that's the
Yeah.
human part of, I need to be safe. So
Yeah.
anorexia and bulimia is the one where you overeat and then you purge all of that, and then that's also a form of control. What I put in my body is I can also control what's going out. So sex addiction, our next one, is very prevalent in all of our society at the moment as well. There's a lot of research around the sex addiction. It's got all the same dopamine releases, the visual part of online pornography. Those are huge. And because our social media is so prevalent, that is, again, where it's coming from as well. It's easy access. We're feeling overwhelmed. Just it's a bit of it, all a part of the escapism.
Yeah.
Then we have something called addiction to work. All right, everyone, put your hand up. Okay, addiction to work is called presenteeism. It's like the last person to switch off the lights, always at work, the laptop's always up, thinking about work, not being able to sleep, relax. It's all about being present. And it is also part of that control. If I can control my environment, then I won't get anxious or I'll be able to work better. But in actual fact, it does it the other way around. And gambling, I'm going to share a little bit more about gambling because that one I want to put quite a lot of awareness on. Gambling is huge, and I get rather upset and triggered when I see all the gambling adverts, because in South Africa there is no restrictions, and you'll be shocked by the stats later. I'm going to leave it there. So we also have shopping. Okay, relax, those of you who like shopping, but you can also get addicted to that process of shopping. And exercise. So exercise is fine if you just do it in moderation, everything in moderation. But if you're getting up in the morning and you're exercising at lunchtime, all you're thinking about is exercise. There's something called bulkorexia, when you bulk up your muscles, and then you get almost addicted to that feeling of being bulked up. Okay, that's a short list. All right.
And I do want to just make a note,
Kevin?
Karen, while that people are
Yes.
sharing some questions, and we're going to get to questions. We're just going to break some of this down, and as soon as we've gone through it, we're going to answer those questions. So I've already got some questions coming through, guys. So please be patient with us. We will answer those. Thank you.
Great. So I just want to share this slide and then we'll go to questions as well. I just want you to get a lot of awareness around it. So there we're looking at the types of addiction, and now we're looking at the actual substances. Although we're looking at process as well, now we're looking more at the substances. So this is a long list here. I'm not going to go through everything, but I just want everyone to take a little time and look through these. Okay, so the oxycodone, ecstasy, crack, ketamine, all of these types of things. Some of them are, there's quite a few in the beginning that is opioid addictions. So opioids are the ones that affect our brain. It's the opiate. We have natural opioids in our system to help us to feel calm, and also especially when we get hurt. So if you break a bone, and this is the one they mostly use in the ERs, to relax the body so that pain, because when we get that huge amount of pain, it's very overwhelming for the body. So our natural opioids will kick in, and they will just relax the body so that we can handle the pain. But of course, when the crisis is over, then the pain returns, and that's what the opioids do, and that's what the opioid addiction does, is it keeps that pain level down, but eventually the brain can't handle all of that, and it goes out of control. So to move away from that addiction, you have to regain the brain in the neuroplasticity of allowing that brain to actually regain itself. So the alkaloids are urbanols, the sleeping tablets, the fentanyls, the one that is synthetically made, cannabis, which we know we use quite a lot here in South Africa because it's free and it's legal. But we need to be careful of how we're using these substances. Magic mushrooms, so some of them are hallucinogenic, where we get images. So hallucinogenic would be I see things or I hear things, so auditory hallucinations. So it's great if you are going for a trip and this is what you want. But of course, what happens is that you lose all control of your thinking brain. So you might do something impulsive. People have felt like they're Superman, jumping off buildings, things like that. So all of these are mind altering. So the more you know about this, the more that you can actually understand what it is that you're going to be doing before you do something. So it's that little
Yeah.
pause about is that substance I'm going to use? What is it going to do to me? And then just quickly through these, so things like Ritalin and Concerta, that's for ADHD. So those types of medications, they are made for the Ritalin, for the ADHD brain, and not for a brain that doesn't function like that. So the neurotypical brain, if you're taking Ritalin for just higher concentration, you are altering your brain function again. So you just need to be thinking about the brain that is working along with these. And things like prescription, things with codeine, also very relaxing, highly addictive. So try and get the non-drowsy ones, the codeine-free ones as well. And then, of course, we've got glue, petrol thinners, diet tablets. Oh, the list goes on. It's a lot.
Yes, it's a
It's
long
awareness.
list. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and sugar and all of these, but also not to panic that we're not addicted to all of these substances. It's when like I said in the beginning, when it starts to change your daily functioning, where all you are thinking about is the substance. You're getting a craving, it's interfering with your daily life. Okay. All right. So, Kevin, yeah, quickly through the stats. I think the audience can also read these, but I got these off a very recent one because a lot of the stats are quite old. But I particularly focused on gambling because it's a trigger for me, knowing that how available it is. We're seeing it everywhere, and we think we're just seeing it. But look how the adverts say, um, "Oh, you can game on your phone while you're buying, or you can game while you're watching TV, So it sounds lovely, but what is that all about? So the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation, there is some shocking stats here for you. So
Yeah,
in 2024 to 25, 4,126 individuals for gambling related treatment were, those were the stats. This was followed from the referrals in 23 to 24, almost half, and 22 to 23, much, much less. So can you see it's almost doubled in
yeah.
1 year? That's a scary stat. So why, you ask me? Well, let's see. So the survey found that 50% of gamblers say they include gambling in their monthly budget. I was like blown away. So
Sure.
like you would include food or essentials, gambling has become an essential. That's scary. 16 said they borrowed money. 15 said they could
No,
they could
and I
not
and I
control
don't
their
laugh.
desire. And yeah,
Sorry, I laugh because
I'm with you.
I've never even heard of that, and it's like, wow. I'm like, that is alarming to know that the addiction takes the effect of actually putting it in your budget. That's a whole nother level, right? Sure.
That's a level. Exactly. It's like, and that shows it's like food. I can't live without it. I need that. That's how I cope.
Yeah.
It is. It's a bit of a mind blow. I know. Where was I? Desire to gamble is 20%. And then the online sports betting. 2024 gamblers used essential fixed funds, not surplus, to gamble. 63% said they used money, part of their food and savings. That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
I just want the audience to just really read that so that this is real. According to the report in 23 and 24 financial year, wages reached over 1.14 trillion, up to 40% year on year. Okay, using your wages towards these gambling. And
Mm.
then in 2025, it reported 35% people seeking help for gambling addiction were unemployed and relied
Sure.
on social grants. So your social grant is coming in, which is for your essentials, for your living, and it's going out. Quite sobering, hey, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm quietly listening because part of my I just want to see where we are now. Part of my I want to, because we've got lots of questions. Let me just close this quickly.
Yeah, let's go to the
Part of what
question.
I'm realizing about, the stats that you're sharing, Karen, I think and and this is why addiction is so difficult to deal with very often. I mean, I've had a family member who is severely addicted to drugs. So I've bore witness to what it does and the destruction that it actually does to an environment and to a family. And we have lots of questions pouring in here. So I'm going to just start with these questions so we can start with them. But one of the things that I think very often, yeah, a good starting point is understanding the identity that you have, or that we've create sometimes in to support the addiction that goes part of that, right? And part of that identity, like putting it in our budgets, right? That's part of your monthly sort of identity on how you identify with this thing that brings you pleasure, right? And for me, having done this for the last 20 years now, you start realizing that part of taking control of any circumstance and any situation that's happening, and I'm not excusing that it's not difficult. I mean, like, we know that addiction has us, has a society very, very deeply drawn into its grip, right? But part of that for yourself has to kind of recognize, so how would I like to do this? And I think that comes with an identity, like clarifying how are you identifying with this, and how is it become part of how you identify, right? And I think that's a big conversation. One of the questions that we started off with earlier already was someone asking, how do you recognize when a habit has crossed the line into addiction? What do you want to
Yes,
share with that?
very excellent. And that is it. It's like from recreational to addiction. There's that line. And it's quite simple. First of all, taking a questionnaire is helpful to see how much of that is part of my life. But
Yeah.
one of the things that you can look at is how it affects your daily life. So if you are, say, you like wine and you have a couple of glasses of wine, that's fine, everything's going well. But now you wake up in the morning and go, oh, can't wait to get home later and have that glass of wine. And that's a process addiction as well, besides a substance, because the process of buying the wine, think about buying the wine. Oh, I'm excited, I got the wine, and then you get home and then you open the bottle. Get the glass. It's like ceremonial. Pour the wine. So you can see you're thinking about that process as well as that substance at the end, and you know that feeling you're going to get. But now it's okay. You think about it now and again, and then it becomes part of the day. You keep thinking about it, so it becomes a craving. So you move over from just recreational, now and again, it's like a social event, to actually part of the craving. And when it becomes the craving, then you're moving over into the addiction.
Yeah. And and that's part of why I mentioned the identity part of that processing that you've got to be aware of, as someone asking these questions, is like, how do I relate to my daily function? When I get home, what do I instinctively do? And part of that is also going to be a good, and I think it comes back to your self-awareness part of, like, really starting to pay attention to what are these little processes and behaviors that we put in place just to support how we get through our lives. And we don't often see it or even relate to it as an addictive process, but part of that process could be supporting the habit, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So another question here is, can the need to be always be switched on and be present, like a
Mm.
people pleasing, can that be a form of addiction? And from my
Yes. So we
side,
spoke about that presenteeism. Yes. Okay.
yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, Kevin. Yeah. No, we spoke about that presenteeism as part of some of the addictions. So it's that like always on. And of course the body is looking out for survival, right? So I need to be on so to protect myself, but then I also need to relax. So when I'm relaxed, I can recalibrate my nervous system. But if I'm always on, my nervous system is always on. So I need to be present all the time. But of course, what happens is the adrenals start to fatigue, you get adrenal fatigue, you start to get so tired, and then that's part of the signs and symptoms, and eventually you find yourself in burnout. And then you go like, how did I get there? And that's part of that presenteeism. Yes.
And I want to add to, one of the things that I've always been aware of is I have the need for variety. So and I've noticed that because I have such a huge need for it, I often, I'll kind of go from one moment to another. And in my life, I've actually resorted to drinking to kind of just create a different moment. And you're like, oh, well, it's a Friday afternoon and this is what we do. And then I started paying attention to, was it actually that I needed to be drinking, or is it that I'm feeling like my life is stale? It felt stale and my relationship was stale or something was wrong. And in those moments, I started realizing that I needed the process shift. I needed the identity shift so I could create and fulfill my need for variety based on the fact that I was doing this with unhealthy behaviors. And because, I just felt good in that moment, but it didn't, long term, it didn't actually solve anything, right? Another question here is addiction always progressive? Does it always get worse over time if it's not addressed?
Okay. So I think it depends on the type of addiction as well. If it's a substance, it can happen quite quickly because you'll find that you need more of that substance to get the same effect or feeling in the body. So that can be really quickly. If it's something like a process, and the perfect example, like you shared, Kevin, is that, oh, I'm using the substance to feel better or have some purpose or whatever. So it can take some time and maybe a long time before you actually realize that this is actually a coping mechanism. So it's an unhealthy coping mechanism. And the more you use an unhealthy coping mechanism, the longer it will be part of your process because you're not aware of it. So I also wanted to say something when you were, I'm going to go to the other questions when you were talking about that also, Kevin, is that our awareness is so key. Around South Africa, what do we do when we celebrate? Okay, question
Yeah.
to everyone. We have
We're all guilty.
we are, it's a birthday, it's Christmas, it's a wedding. What do we do when we celebrate?
Yeah. We drink, we
Okay.
smoke.
So it's we, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a social realization that that is part of what we do, like, and as human beings, we want to belong and fit in, right? Because that's how we are. We're human. So we belong and fit in by copying everybody else. So we need to look at our friends and our family members, and is that serving us? I know it's quite harsh to say, but is that serving us on who we want to be? Yeah,
I know.
that's aside. Let's go to the question.
I love that. Like, I just want to add to like and that's why I bring that identity conversation into it. I have someone listening today who's actually, we've actually spoken about this, where the decision was to stop drinking. And as soon as this person made this decision, people in her world were like asking, but why are you, like, how are we supposed to go out now? Where are we, like, what are we going to do? And, like, why do you have to do it with me? So, and the relation that, you have with your friends is part of the identity that supports the habit of whatever that habit is that we've created. And I use the word habit because sometimes the very addiction we coin as habit, and we don't even realize that I'm actually addicted to this thing that we're doing, and it actually has control over me. So it is that, it's that awareness that we really need to start practicing to kind of go, when I'm doing that, how do I show up? Like when this person's around me, who am I? And am I happy with who I am? And is that supported? And unfortunately, those are the difficult things we have to be able to talk, speak through, and get the coach, get the person that you work through this with to unpack, so that we get the awareness levels risen far more. So we have that. Another question is addiction
Yes.
something that inevitably grows stronger the longer it goes unchallenged, or can people maintain what they see as control indefinitely? Must I read
Sorry,
it again?
Kevin, just repeat it. I just broke up for 1 second there. Yeah.
Is addiction something that inevitably grows stronger the longer it goes unchallenged, or can people maintain what they see as control?
Uh, so I think they're talking about functioning alcoholics
Mm,
or addictions or substance. So we have the thing called functioning alcoholism, whereas I drink and I have a lot, but I can still get up in the morning and function. So we have binge drinking as well, where you decide that this is, you just need more and you need to get that feeling. So you binge drink and you pass out, but you wake up the next morning and you go to work and you function and you do everything, and then you repeat the process. So it's interesting for our audience to realize that it's not the amount. It's not like it has to be done every day. So I don't drink every day to be an alcoholic. I drink in different stages. So I can do no drinking in the week, but then I binge drink all weekend and I pass out every day of the weekend, and then I come to work. But
yeah.
we need to understand that eventually that all catches up with you, because your liver and your heart and everything, and also it becomes part of that addiction process. So I think they might be talking about that functioning alcoholic or substance or gaming or whatever it might be. And it's yes, it can go for quite some time, but it catches up with you. It always catches up. With anything that we do that is body related. Even if we're talking about something like sugar,
Mm.
it's not going to kill us, but it's certainly going to affect our moods and our body and our weight and all of that and who we are. So it's about how it affects us as a human being. Does that answer the question? I hope so.
I think so, yeah. Another interesting, as you say, about sugar now, Linda mentioned emotional eating towards fast food addiction, especially in the youth and young adolescents.
Mm,
How do we deal with the denial around this? And because
mm,
you kind of think it's just fast food. It's like, it's not a big deal. What's the problem?
yeah. So we just have to look at the American. I'm saying American because we have a lot of stats. We just have to look at the
Mm.
American stats of obesity, and that's all I have to say
Well,
around that.
and the thing is, like, and I always on the stance, especially from a coaching perspective, is you can do whatever you want, right? But at the end of the day, that's your decision. It's the choice you're making, right? And if you can live with that choice, then that's the choice you've lived with, and that's okay. There's no one judging. If you feel like you need to eat to that degree, and you don't really consider that there's health implications to that, that's also your decision. But part of that decision you're making at that level could be driven by something that's really unhealthy, and a really unhealthy mindset that you might have about yourself. So you're not even paying attention to that thing. And that's what's beautiful about coaching, being able to sit with your coach. And, I can hear that, we both come from that position where sometimes you've got to look at what the core fundamental driver is to the negative behavior. And sometimes, it's not a case of dissolving that negative behavior and going, um, well, here's a magic wand. But the moment we bring that awareness onto what is driving that negative behavior, we have far more equipped processes and practical ways to start taking action towards changing that, right? And it might not solve it immediately.
So
It definitely helps.
yeah, and I think Kevin, there's a big point here that I want to mention, and just because I know that there's so much, and we could go on for hours, which is,
Mm,
it's a topic that I think we can have more conversations on. Is that it's about lifestyle. So a lot of coaching happens around lifestyle. I know that for my coachees, it's like we're talking about topics, but at the end of the day, we're talking about a lifestyle.
mm,
So it's a lifestyle that you're born into. This is what my family do. This is what my culture does. I mean, even if you think of peers in schools, peer
yeah,
pressure, it's a
yeah.
lifestyle, right? Everyone's smoking. If you're not smoking, well, then what's wrong with you? Why
Mm,
aren't you smoking? So you start smoking. Drugs and alcohol and cannabis and all of that are rife in our schools because of the peer pressure, right? And then it just becomes a lifestyle. Well, everybody does it. Like we celebrate through alcohol. So we all have, there's fast food. So it's a lifestyle. How do we eat? We have busy lives. Parents are working. There's no time to make home cooked food. We just buy takeouts. So it's really coming down to that nitty gritty of what that lifestyle is for that person. And when you make that choice, is that that's not the lifestyle I want for me. That's when the shift happens.
yeah.
Mm.
And also I want to say that, from a coach's perspective, we don't judge. We don't go there, oh, well, I can't believe that's what's going on. That's not the position we hold. And very often addiction is associated with shame and guilt, right? And so from
Mm.
a coach's perspective, it's for us, it's a beautiful process for us to be able to be allowed to go to some vulnerability with someone, to help them go through that process and unpack and say, okay, cool. So here we are, we've arrived here. How do we actively help you take action to change this lifestyle and what are the immediate things we can do today and this week and this month, and start shifting. And
Mm.
what's beautiful about those shifts is each individual, each coachee that does this for themselves then gets to the other side of that and realizes, wow, I'm doing this. I'm doing it for my life, right? And that's what's beautiful about going through the coaching process. Another one, which I think is a beautiful, different kind of angle, is what does self-compassion play? How does this self-compassion play into recovery? Karen, what would you say to self-compassion?
Yes. Interesting. This is one of the questions that we've got posed as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a few there. Okay. So this is an interesting one because I think it goes much deeper.
Mm.
And I was having a conversation with a coachee the other day, and we actually got really deep, nitty gritty, and we realized that it's about respect.
Oh, wow.
So self compassion comes from respecting yourself. So
Mm.
you know how often people say, like, I wish people would respect me and I want to be respected. But when you look deep down inside yourself, are you respecting yourself?
Mm.
And and when you really put the mirror there and you put the magnifying glass, you go like, no. So it comes down to that respect. Like if I respected my body and I woke up in the morning and I said like, wow, this body, it pumps all that blood all day for me every day, and my brain moves all these neurons around it. I can move my arms, and I respected my body. Would I put something in it that damaged it? And I'm not talking about a moral issue here, because a lot of time people think about addictions, it's a moral and a willpower issue. So addictions is not it's actually a disease. So when you get addicted, that actual process of it becomes a disease in the body. So do I want that disease in my body, or do I want to have a healthy body? So it's a choice there. So there's nothing to do about willpower or moral or being a failure. We get addicted to substances due to circumstances. Okay. It's not like I woke up this morning and I said, oh, Kevin, I've decided I'm going to be addicted to heroin today.
Yeah.
That's my decision.
Yeah.
We don't always take that decision. It's part of what happens. Some people get addicted to substance when they go in for operations, and then they're
Mm.
given certain medication, and then that's where the addiction cycle starts. A lot of people wear those bands. They say, when you take me to ER, I do not want any opioids or anything. So we don't choose these things. And I think people need to understand that addiction has also a compassion part to it, is that there's nothing wrong. That person isn't evil, or like we think of the Hollywood person under the bridge with a syringe. They aren't. They Hollywoodize what addictions is like. These are
Yeah.
human beings. These are people. These are your family. These are your loved ones, and they're trying, but they need your help also.
Yeah. Karen, like I see we already 10 minutes left, but last question for today, I think it's also a beautiful one,
Yeah.
is we often separate behavioral addictions from substance addictions, but what would you say is the underlying drive, that need for a hit or relief, or the actual same? So, you know, even though it's substance or it could be behavioral, like what is it that we're not dealing with?
Okay. So it's usually an underlying, it's like a control. Can you hear me, Kevin?
I can, yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Sorry, the signal's
Okay,
going.
good. Yeah. So it's an underlying, it's a coping mechanism. It's like I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed. So I would say, I mean, I don't know if anybody's listened to our stress one, is that I'm very passionate about stress. It's got a lot to do with stress.
Mm.
So how do I manage my stress? And because the body gives you a signal that your heart starts pumping and you need to do something. So then what do I do to help myself? If I don't have a support structure, I don't go to counseling or coaching or whatever it is, I grab that substance to help me because it's easy. And a lot of people say, Karen, are people in denial, or why don't they go for help? It's because the help is hard. It's hard work. Where the substance is easy, I just take that and then I feel better. It's much easier to grab something, because it's hard work. It's not easy. That's why you can't do it on your own. You're not an island. You need support, and that's why coaching is brilliant. It can be a very supportive tool. Psychology is also a supportive tool, like counseling and psychologists. But there's a lot of ways that we can work with addictions. It's like almost having a holistic view of it. Who are
Mm.
these people who can support me besides the AAs and the others? Anyway, that's it. I think we are sure. We got lots of questions, Kevin. I'm ready.
No, I mean those. We've got a few more, but I just want to share. Before before we have to jump off
Yes,
the live, Karen, is that the Hello
yes.
Coach app has 34 different coaching topics, and addiction is one of them. And what's beautiful about what Hello Coach has done for Mental Health Awareness Month is that they're actually offering an amazing special to actually connect with a coach for just R1, right? So if you are really interested, guys, go and check it out. Click on this code, go through the app, register, use the code Hello R1. So it's R1 for your coaching. And for that session, you pay R1 for the session, right? But all you got to do is scan and go through the process, choose from your 34 topics what it is you need and what it is you want to connect with. And then you can literally, for this month, for the rest of October, you can actually get to you can get a coach that can actually work with you. And Karen and myself are on the coaching app, guys. So go and check it out. Hello Coach is there to support. It's what we do. It's what we do well. And we would love to support in any way we can possibly. The last one question while people are scanning that, and we can answer some questions. There's a question called, can trauma be a trigger or cause for substance abuse? Karen?
Yes, absolutely. Brilliant question. Thank you for that. And exactly, it's related to that stress of trauma. So trauma definitely it sits in the brain and in the body, and the way and that's where self-harm comes a lot with trauma, because we need just the release of the body when we get triggered by trauma. So trauma stays in the body. You can talk it through as well, but you do need more of a somatic approach where you release it through the body, because what happens in trauma is if I give you a fright right now, you're going to you're going to jump like this, right? Which is natural. Okay. So when I do that, it's actually a baby's reflex. I can't remember, Moro reflex. They jump like this and the heart starts to race and the body says, okay, I'm ready. Must I fight, flight, or freeze? Where must I go? And then if you are not given the tools to calm back down again, that reaction stays in the body. So when you're constantly triggered like that, you need to relax yourself. So how would you relax yourself? With a
Yeah.
substance or a process or with mindfulness tools or whatever. So trauma is very much linked to addictions, yes.
And I see we've got some more time. So there is another one here that says, for anyone realizing that they might be caught in an addictive pattern, what's the very first step towards
Yes.
awareness and change? And I think that's, a significant one, because I think the very thing, we get a fright because we know that the addiction, whatever that addiction is for us, we don't necessarily want to go, oh goodness, I think I'm addicted to this or this situation or this substance. What do I do so I don't tell anyone and I kind of avoid it, right? What is those first steps? What is the first step to awareness and change, Karen?
Yes. I know. This is the tricky one because now you realize, okay, so Karen's been talking about this topic. Maybe I'm addicted to this thing. So questionnaires, the first step. I know SADAG have some questionnaires. The internet will have questionnaires on. Just Google a very specific, addictions, substance addictions or process addiction questionnaire, and you take the questionnaire and you see if you answer them honestly, obviously, and then you'll see where you are on that questionnaire. So if you get high above certain areas, but I think it's really nice to do that with somebody. So if you maybe have a coaching session, you can do that with your coach, or you have a counseling session, you do that with your counselor, or you can also go into the clinic. So you can actually go into the emergency room as well and ask for support and help there. Um, there's lots of different support structures, toll-free numbers. Lifeline will also help you. So it's about, first of all, reaching out. So the first step, Kevin, is reaching out, saying, I have a problem, or I'm not sure if I've got a problem. Reach out to a professional. Okay, so it's important to realize, speaking to your friends and family, they're not a professional. You need to reach out to a professional. And once you've got some professional guidance, then you'll know which way to go. So within the coaching, there's quite a few different techniques and tools that we use for addictions and methods, but wherever you go to a professional, they will know how to handle it. But speaking up is number one. That's why we have sessions like this, so we can speak up.
Absolutely, Karen. And I think you mentioned something that I think most people don't recognize is go to someone that can work through this with you, right? And that's what's beautiful about the Hello Coach app for me, is there are many professionals connected to this app, and they all have that value system of wanting to help, right? So when you have that recognition of, this is my awareness, I need to take that step, go in. And I think that idea of going with the coach and going through the questionnaire with your coach and say, okay, cool, let's set the session up. I'm going to do this. I want to, even if it's just, checking how you're doing, and like, is this a thing, or like, what could it be? I think that's a really important part, is taking that awareness and realizing that it might be that, but then also connecting with someone and having the conversation, because and I agree, friends and family have wonderful intentions, but they're not professionals, right? So don't go to your family member. Connect with someone that's because family members' hearts are always in the right place, absolutely. And very often they want to do good, and sometimes they give bad advice, right? But, from a professional's perspective, connecting with a coach, it's going to be a very neutral kind of conversation. And it's about the guidance of kind of going, well, let's unpack, let's reframe. And Karen, I see that we've had so many engagement today. So obviously a big conversation, and maybe we should come back and do some more of this. So thank you for being here. Karen, if you had to leave people just with, your takeaways of what it is you want people to know around addiction, this conversation, and that there is help for people and you can do more. Give us something of your wisdom well to share with people listening today.
Okay, always my go-to, Kevin. First, take a deep breath. Breathe. All right, and especially on the call now, if you're feeling anxious and it's like just take a deep breath. Okay, first of all, it reduces your stress levels, and then secondly, you're not an island. Don't do this on your own. Okay, so my advice is take deep breaths and reach out today to somebody, a professional who can help you. You cannot do this on your own. Often I have people who say like, no, I'll manage this, and you can't do this on your own. Okay, there's certain things you can, but this particular one is you need support and deep breathing to start.
I love it. And I think that's a beautiful way of just starting, like just breathe and find someone to talk to, right? And Karen, you and I are right there, and we're on the other side of this app. So, if you need to go and do it, guys, that's the coaching hour for today. Thank you, Karen, for making some time with us and unpacking this. I think it's a fantastic conversation. It's something that we, very often people avoid it, and I don't want to avoid it. I'd rather put it out there and say, hey guys, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but let's talk about it. And I think, like there's more to it. And I'm just gracious that you are on the other side of this conversation to be able to do that with us. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. It was lovely to be here. And I know I can't see all the audience, but I know you're out there. So thank you for joining us.
Guys, and yeah, we're going to be every second week we're live on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on the Lunchtime series. So go and check wherever you are connecting. Go and check out the previous lives that we did with Hello Coach. There's lots of tools there that we've shared. There's lots of information. And please join us for our next one. It will be shared out within the next week to tell everybody what we're going to be talking about, and we will have a professional joining us. Guys, have a fantastic day. Karen, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Cheers for now.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.